So here I'm test fitting the cage. I just slid a bolt through the main engine mount here. This side doesn't need a hole cut for the engine mount. And I just set it up against the bike here to line up because there does need to be a hole cut for the crossbar here. So I'm going to take just a pick tool and put it through the hole and then just kind of scratch the surface of the plastic here so it'll show me where I need to make the hole. Let's see if I can get a picture of that. And then a real big trick that the best way if you have it available is to use a hole saw, and then with plastic, if you run the hole saw backwards, it'll make a really clean hole and it can't catch and cause damage. And obviously you want to check behind it and make sure that you're not going to drill through into anything, but you can go real slow with the drill in reverse and make your hole backwards through the plastic and it'll be an extremely clean hole, which I'll show you in a minute here. I have a little stash of hole saws here, so I'm just going to choose one that's maybe really close, maybe a little bit bigger than the tubing of the crossbar here. So this one just fits over it. That would leave a little bit of a gap. This one is almost the same but a little bit bigger, so that's what I'm going to use. It's going to be a real nice tight fit. So now I have a hole drilled for my pilot hole, and now I'll put this hole saw bit blade on, and then again I'm going to run this in backwards with the drill going in reverse to make a really clean cut hole. Now that I'm through the initial layer, this bike actually has another layer of plastic behind it, which is not typical, but looks like there's a little screw right here, so I'm going to remove that screw. I've got this screw taken out here, and now this piece is removed, and you can see the hole is really a nice clean edge. I put this crossbar through, be a nice, really clean, tight fit, and I'll go do the other side. Our motor mount is here, but we do need to trim out a little bit of this plastic up here in order to get the cage to fit. And this is how we'll do that. So now I have the cage in its rear hole, and I have this motor mount hole lined up with the bolt where it's going to go. And then I'm just taking a pencil and marking the cage where it's going to contact the plastics right there, and that's where we're going to trim it. Here's my mark. There's nothing for the pilot bit to go through for a hole saw, so I'm going to have to cut it a different way. For this job I'm going to use an air reciprocating saw, air saw, air body saw, different names for it. There's a lot of different brands. If you didn't have that available, you could use a file, a Dremel, a lot of different kind of tools. And here we go. That's a pretty clean line, and now we have access to the motor mount. Pulling out the old stock bolt, and just like the other side, I'll pre-fit the cage. Put the rear into its place. The front, I'll line up with the hole that we just cut, and then I'll stick the new bolt in the hole just to hold it in place so that I can mark the bottom like we did on the other side and cut the hole for the crossbar. Made the hole for the second one, and goes through to the other side. You can kind of see through this gap here where the other one is. So I'm going to go ahead and feed the bar through and get the bolt started on the other side. And then I'll put this cage half on and get it started on this side. You can kind of see in there where it's going across. One real big trick or a good idea when installing a cage is never tighten any bolt until you have them all started, or you'll fight yourself for alignment. So there's a little aluminum spacer that needs to go between the cage and the pipe to space that out. Side started, and I didn't tighten it all the way yet, but it's connected at least. So this side now, we'll go ahead and put the cage up and get all these bolts started, and then once again, once all of them are threaded, the threads are started, then I'll tighten them all up and we'll go to installing all the bolts all tightened up, and the cage is looking really nice, really clean install. Time to put the sliders in, and they just slide right in, and there's a pre-drilled hole right here. Let's see if I can get it a little clearer there. I'm going to use a 3/16 drill bit and drill a pilot hole, and then use the supplied screws that are self-tapping screw, and they'll just tighten right up into the slider and hold them in place. All pre-drilled, and you can use a 3/8 socket, or I happen to have one that fits on my drill, so I'll just push this into my pre-drilled hole a little bit, and then I can use I have a bit that fits it. There's adapters for sockets, a bunch of different things you can use if you want to use power instead of doing it by hand. I prefer to do the easier way. And that's it.